On today's show, we're going to be talking about design systems and your career. Is your career doomed if you solely focus on design systems, or will it make you a design superstar who is untouchable? Or, are you restricting what you can do in the future if you only focus on design systems? I'm Luke Murphy, and I'm joined by my co host, Michelle Chin. We're both design advocates at zeroheight, the design system management platform, and this is Design Systems WTF. Ah,
Yes, welcome.
okay. Yeah, episode 6. I can't believe we've done 6 of these already. I'm looking forward to when we get to 600.
Whew, that's a lot. That's a lot of fortnights.
It's a lot of fortnights. But yeah, I think this is an interesting one. This was your topic, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's,
Yeah.
I do a little bit of career coaching on the side, and people are like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about design systems in my job." And I think people are concerned, like you're focusing on little tiny bits of pieces, atoms, I guess. Um and after doing so much of that for so long, like it, can't they, I think they wonder if they're still relevant to design. I mean, they know they can design UI, but there's always that like, oh my gosh, like will I get hired because I haven't designed flows and features but like in the past couple years. So um yeah.
It is that. I think it's that problem with being a specialist in any. I think any field. I was going to say in any part of design, but in any field, it's when you go into that specialism, especially in the. I feel like the world we're in of like product design, like UX design, and especially if you're working with like startups or scale ups, um, the I feel like there's a lot of generalists. There's a lot of people who are, the T-shaped designer. Um, the idea that you're a generalist in a lot of stuff and a specialist in one. So I can understand that, but it's interesting because how did you get into design systems? What was your path?
um I don't, looking back, so I was a product designer, but my focus was interaction design, so I didn't even do visual
Yeah.
design. Usually I was paired up with a visual designer. um and then I think it's because I liked the interaction so much, and there was another visual designer who was really into designing like components. So
Mm.
I was kind of like his counterpart in terms of interaction. So writing usage guidelines, that type of stuff. And then I liked writing. So no one else liked writing because what designer likes writing? So then it kind
Yeah.
of just ended up becoming me doing documentation, and the rest is history. So uh yeah, I think yeah, it's weird because even like I wouldn't say like I'm a like a like a great component designer. Like I can design a component, but like I'm building something in Figma, I'm not gonna be quick at it.
Is this your way to like? I'm just hoping that your job's secure at Zero High because I think that was otherwise a really ringing endorsement for when you want to go somewhere else, right? Uh,
I'm a quick learner, by the way.
yeah, I think it's funny because it's like my path in was via the design. Well, my path to Zero High was in the design ops route. I'd always had a little bit of design systems because it was startups, and I feel like unfortunately in startups you usually don't have space for specialisms. As soon as you're a specialist in startups, that's a quick road to getting made redundant. I feel. Um, as soon as everything contracts, they're like, "Oh no, we'll keep the people who can do everything." Um, but my path into here was going into more design ops side. Um, and I remember it was quite scary that even just going into design ops, that concept of going away from uh, you know, the being, your core being working in Figma and working on, pretty much everything to do with the product. And it's funny because I feel like we have the same with people coming into design advocacy as well. They have those same thoughts of like, oh no, but if I get off a core product design team, am I ever going to be able to go back? And I think spoiler alert, it's the answer is yes, right? Like it's going to make you
Yeah.
a better, more well-rounded person. Um, but I don't know. I do think that uh, I think that design systems specifically, you have a very specific skill set that works really well for design systems, and so I do think that like I don't think everybody's cut out for design systems, right?
Yeah, no, I don't think everybody is. I think it's funny because everybody wants to be part of the design system team contributing,
Yeah.
but then not everyone's great at it. Um, but that's okay because that's you find out if you are or not. And I think the thing is like what people are most concerned about is that other people, if they're looking to change their role or find a new position or go back to product design strictly, like I think people worry that the hiring manager is going to judge them of like, you only know how to make Figma components. Um, like a really myopic
Yeah.
aspect of design systems, but it's like, we almost have to do that cheerleading for ourselves to be like, no, actually, I am a big, broad systems thinker. I can think about how something is going to scale. And then you use all those like business buzzwords that they like to hear. And they're like, oh, like it would be good to have someone that had a very strong recent design system background as a product designer. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think that's the thing is, and especially when it comes back to that whole like T-shaped designer thing. Like, I think you're right. I think it is a large part of this is around how you sell yourself to the folks that you're talking to, and I think that it's like we as designers are often great at selling our own skills in, but I do think that it is, looking at um that T-shaped designer concept. I think that a T-shaped designer, I know it's a bit of an old term now, but I do think it is actually, or what is it they say, like W shape as well is another one where it's like
oh, that's a
multiple.
new one.
um but I think that it's like having those specialisms just makes you a stronger designer overall, because the best kind of design team is one that is, generally good at everything, but each person has that unique, distinct area that they are the expert and the specialist in. That kind of means that you are, bringing something to the team that means that the team is overall just more robust, but also it's kind of like makes you as a designer defensible.
Yeah.
Um, it means that it's a lot harder to get rid of you if you're the person who has that expertise. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Do you
Um,
think it's like different if you were a design system manager?
in
Like
what
as
way?
like as not like an as an IC, but like an as a manager role? Like,
Yeah.
do you feel like if you were to only focus on design systems, you were kind of stuck and that you wouldn't be able to go to like being a feature, like a product design manager?
No. Sure. I genuinely don't, because I think that when it comes to like design management and even the design ops side of it, there's differences, but I think that, when it comes down to it, as much as we like to say otherwise, design systems are a product in themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're a type of product, they're an internal product. They have different challenges and different like ways that people understand it, which mean it's almost like, I think we've talked about this before. Design systems are a pre-PMF, like pre product market fit product a lot of the time in organizations. Um, and so I think that it's like the same. I think it's like the same challenges when it comes to being a design manager and design system team compared to any other product design team. That I don't think I would never think otherwise if somebody was. I don't know. I don't know. Now you got me questioning that.
I
Do
mean,
you think there's a difference?
I don't think so, but like I've had friends who are design system design managers wonder, did I did I go to a path that kind of goes to a dead end?
Hmm.
And I was like, no, like if anything, you're in it like you said, like you're in a better position because of like you have to think more strategically. You're working with a
Yeah.
lot more cross-functional teams. And even um Mateo's mentioned like design system designers might be a little bit more techy in terms of
Yeah.
like tokens and understanding like component implementation and GitHub, which is super, super valuable as a designer who can talk the language of like other cross-functional teams.
Yeah.
Like Akmal said, to like kind of be that bridge, which is super valuable because those are skills you can, show and lead by example for other designers who aren't used to doing that or who aren't familiar doing that. Like you can say like, this is how we're going to work with engineering, or let's go talk to
Yeah.
engineering and really help them level up. So it is a valuable your skill set is super valuable in and outside of design systems.
It is interesting that whole like design systems designers being techier. Like, because I'd 100% agree. I think it's why I've always been, I don't know, always just gravitated towards like design systems teams, because it's, I used to be a front end dev, and I've always been interested in the implementation side of the like design work that I do. Always been interested in understanding the way that things actually get built. Always been way more interested in like that collaboration piece and actually like how I can deliver stuff better to the engineers and how we can work closer together so we can cut down on like, you know, a lot of those um I don't know, duplication of effort and you know the hand off, which is a term that I hate because what is it? It's, I know Brad Frost talks about it as being, it's a handshake, not a hand off, which just feels wankier, but that's fine. Uh, um,
More
but
wholesome. I like it, right? Like,
yeah, but I think that's the thing. It goes back to that whole like diversity of in your team as well, like, and having those different areas of expertise. I think that if you're a product design team, um, and you don't have those dev like people who are more on the techie side in design, I think you kind of you will potentially suffer, and it'll come out in other ways. Things like that collaboration with other teams, things like understanding, you know, the constraints and working to a point where you know you're not having to do endless hours of design QA once it gets into production. Um, I think that it's like that is actually, you know, a real boon. I'm interested
yeah.
on the other side of it. Do you think, in terms of career in design systems, moving the other way from product design into design systems? I was wondering if we wanted to focus a little bit on that. I think there's interesting. I don't know. I wonder also at the moment whether people are a little bit scared of design systems because everybody knows that there's loads of layoffs going on with design systems, like design systems teams, people not understanding design system teams, all that kind of stuff. Um, and I'm wondering whether, you know, this topic is a little bit around that, like
Yeah, I
fear.
think
Yeah.
I think that's a completely fair assumption because like you can be a designer, but like the design system seems like cool to contribute to, but like if you just start to veer into design systems, like are you setting yourself up for, I don't know, getting laid off in a couple quarters, and then not finding a job again, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case either. I think
Yeah.
it's scary because it's anytime you make a transition in your job, um, it is scary, right? So focusing on just design systems seems like you don't know what the outcome's going to be unless you try it. So I think that's
Yeah.
what's kind of scary. Like it's different than if you were like, oh, I worked on this product and now I'm going to work on a different product, but I'm still doing product design. It's like when I transitioned to design ops, I'm like, oh, like I'm going down this other path where I'm saying see ya to design like day to day Figma work. And it's going to be weird, but like it's kind of an adjustment that I told myself that if I really wanted to, I can design on the side, but we know didn't have time for that. So my friend's like, you know what? You can make like little stock illustrations in Figma and components and like sell that on the side. And I was like, that's a great idea. I can still keep my skills up. And then I just didn't have time. So um, you tell yourself a lie and that's fine. But like, you're leaving a path to go to another one. So I think that is scary. But it's not the end of the world. I think there are limitations, right, to being a design system designer. And this is maybe like where I have like a really strong opinion. Like you can't just make components all day. Like, I mean, if you're a junior designer, but like you can't expect to be a principal design system designer and all you do is make components. Like
Yeah.
you have to be contributing at a higher expectation and a higher level, like more strategy, more goal driven, more not just making
Well,
different
understanding your
variations.
users' needs and actually trying to address them.
Yeah, so
Crazy concept.
but some people, they would like to be a component manufacturer to like as like a principal staff component manufacturer, which I'm like, no, no.
Hey, again, but that's the thing. I do think that there is a world, and I don't think we are there yet, unfortunately. Where I do think at the moment, if you're a designer on a design systems team, you need to be thinking about everything from the very low level right up to the very top level, unless you're very privileged and working in one of those like
Giant.
gold dust, yeah, design systems teams that are actually resourced enough to have those different levels of designers. There's not enough of them.
Before we jump to what you're gonna say, I'm just gonna say that I don't think those actually exist. Like we assume that the ones that are like, not to name any names, but the ones
Yeah.
that are like really magical are actually not really magical.
There's still it's funny actually because we it's one of the advantages we have in this job is we get to talk to a load of folks in different types of design system teams, including those at places like um why are we
I don't know.
avoiding naming places? I don't know, but places like Shopify and Salesforce and Spotify and whatnot. Both folks who are customers and folks who aren't customers. We get to talk to them all, which is really great. And yeah, you'd assume that. So like Spotify, for example, they've got like three different teams under their design system team. Well, they did at least up until recently. I don't know what the current state is, but anyway. But it's like they did have some specialist roles in there, but most of the people were just generalists, product designers who did have to care about that from the bottom to the top kind of aspect. As far as I was told. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's like I don't know. I like to think that there is at least one large design system team out there that is like fully resourced and like
Like
stacked, and you've got all the different levels. But yeah,
principal
you're right.
component maker.
99% probably aren't. Yeah.
I would love to hear if someone is or knows of a principal designer, yeah, component maker, because
um,
I mean, that's a pretty good gig, but yeah, realistically, I think most companies can't afford that.
It would be pretty good. I just want to put a call out as well for any questions. If any folks do have questions, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll just keep chatting. The I think one of the other things, going back to me pivoting the conversation to this, I think one of the other things to note as well is the fact that yes, design systems have been tough, especially over the last 12 months. Um, from our point of sort of view where we're sitting and looking at the industry, and because we obviously we're a design systems tool, we have to keep a very close eye on these things. If all the design systems teams disappear, we're kind of screwed. And so we keep an eye on this, and one of the things that has been a little bit heartening over the last couple months is that we have seen things start to shift and start to change back, which is good. I feel like it started around November last year. We got to a real trough around January, February, and then we've sort of very slowly been clawing back. I feel like November, December this year, we've started to see a little bit more. We've started to see more roles getting, more teams sort of being built out, a bit more investment in design systems. Obviously, it's going along with other market conditions where it's like everything is starting to just tick up a little bit, which is great. So I think it's like we're not there yet, but I think we're getting closer. And I don't know if anybody saw Gartner put out the UX hype cycle a couple of months ago for 2023, and design systems are in there, and we're up at the peak of inflated expectations, which is a good place to be because it means that we're on that way to the plateau of productivity. But they're still saying that penetration of design systems is still only between 5 and 20% of the whole market that it could be. So like the idea being that only 5 to 20% of digital product teams have design systems in place,
Yeah, which
which feels
means like
there's
80
so
to
much opportunity.
95 don't
Yeah.
have, which then just means that, at some point you will have your pick of companies to
Yeah.
join to help them build their design system. And I think that's also another thing is like, if you are part of a design system team and you get your design system to a good point, like, and it's kind of in maintenance mode, maybe that's not a
Mm.
challenge for you. Um, you might want to find if there's another team that needs your help and expertise and, is messy that you can help fix. I don't know.
100%. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah.
like
I
a
think
bad
that's the thing.
idea, but it's
We're
good,
getting
right?
into
Like,
a point. Yeah, I think it's basically we're getting into a point where it's like things are actually there's going to be more opportunity out there. I think it's one of the greatest times to be getting into design systems and being a good design systems practitioner, which is great. We do have some questions coming through, so I'm going to shift across to those. We've only got 6 minutes left. So
Talk fast.
um, Vasilis asked, would you say there are more or less opportunities or competition for contractual work as a specialist sort of design ops consultant or a UX UI designer consultant? Um, I mean, I've definitely got. So the folks that I talk, I know a lot of design systems consultants. There seems to be a lot at the moment, um, which is good, and none of them are struggling for work. So
Yeah.
that is a that
Yeah.
is a good thing. In fact, I think actually being a consultant or a contractor in this kind of environment, when we are in slightly harsher conditions, it feels safer for a lot of companies to have contractors because they don't have to worry about notice periods or
Yeah.
benefits and all
Like,
that kind of stuff. It's basically works out cheaper for them.
yeah, it's like, okay, a 3-month or 6-month contract, and that's it. Like, there's an end. I mean, they can renew, which hopefully they do if you want. But I know someone got laid off from their design system team and then started like consulting, and he would work on 3 to 6 month projects and got to choose which design systems he wanted to work on, right? Like, if you see one that you don't like, you don't have to work for that one. um and then what was nice from his perspective is that you just kind of do the work. Like, he liked to do like the component building and the pattern and the documentation, but he didn't have to do like the buy-in and the other businessy type of stuff. Like, he kind of just come
Yeah,
in and out, right? So it was like he got to focus on what he really enjoyed. And he had no shortage. He actually had too much work. Nice problem to have.
which is not a bad position to be in. So yeah,
Yeah.
I do think that it's a good time to be a design system and design ops consultant. Design ops, I'm not so sure about. Actually, I don't know many design ops consultants, but I do definitely know on the design system side. Um, Another great question from Akmal here. So design systems are pretty new in our company, and I'm the only design system person working, despite being a huge platform. Was wondering what's the average amount of people working in a design system department? So what's the average design system department size? Should dev be part of it for the micro front end and component maker? I think that last question, the answer is yes, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Unless you have like a designer that is a design technologist, right? Are we not talking about that? Are you like
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. I
Sure.
think yeah, we've been talking about this a lot internally. I do think that dev. I think it's like dev needs to be involved. You need
Yeah,
the
for
devs involved.
sure.
You need the
Because
front enders involved.
the components plug into the product, which is made by devs.
Well, it's not
Yeah.
only that, but I think also just from like a community adoption point of view, like a design system is not a design system unless the devs are using it. Um, and I think that even if you've got the designers who are capable of building, I think that um, I don't know. I think it's a lot harder to sell in and get that
Yeah,
adoption from the devs
for sure.
and get that buy-in from the engineering department without having engineers that are part of the engineering guild team, whatever it is, working within the design system squad. I think that is quite hard.
Yeah.
In
In
terms of
terms
size,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna say, like, we'll have the results of the How We Document survey, which will break down size of your company, but also size of your engineering and design teams versus how many people have dedicated design system teams or partially resourced, and what the ratios are of like devs to designers on those teams. So that will be out in February. But it really depends on the situation. Ideally, the bigger your company, typically you have a dedicated team, but it's not like a ton of people either. Probably like
it's yeah.
8 to 10,
It's
maybe.
I was going to say it's not huge because this is part of the this year's How We Document as well that we put out at the beginning of the year. We had this data in there, and we did it last year as well. And it was the thing that surprised me in the first year is that I don't know. I did have an assumption that as soon as you got into those massive companies of 20,000 people, that the design system team size would reflect that size and potentially be up into the hundreds. And I think the biggest team size the biggest team size we saw was somewhere between like 25 and 50. But even then, it was pretty hard to know whether they were like hybrid devs who were contributing to the design system but weren't on the core team. I think most design system teams that I've seen usually top out between 10 and 20. But again, it varies on your needs of your team. Also, what you classify as the design system team. Do you like classify each product's design system team as separate DS teams? Um, I think
Yeah, it's
that's
like
a
to Charlotte's question of companies that have systems of systems, like a core design system, a mobile design system, or like brand A, brand B, flagship design system team. Um,
yeah. It's and it is. I think that's definitely where we've seen a lot of growth as well, where folks are trying to build out that like core system of systems um, team as well, which is hard. It's not an easy task of having that like core global design system that you have other design systems feed into. But it is I think that's one of the biggest areas of growth that we have coming up for us in the design system space is how we solve that problem in an easy, straightforward, scalable way.
yeah, because I think the idea is that design systems, like products were around before design systems, so then all the products made their own design systems. So you have these systems of systems, and then they're
Yeah,
like, okay, let's unify. But then there's like different code bases, different ways of doing things, different sprint cycles, and all this other stuff. So you're just trying to put that all together,
yeah.
which I don't know can keep you gainfully employed if you're into that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And finally, because we're already over time,
Yeah.
the last question, from Justin, how long until AI can do our job? 2 years. No, that, I mean, that's a much bigger question. I'm not going to answer that, but you should check out our AI and design system white paper that's coming out soon. Short answer, I wouldn't worry about AI taking our jobs just yet. I
Yeah,
think there's still a lot of human touch that's needed.
we're pretty safe. But I think there's other it's gonna force us to think of ways that we need to stay relevant, right? Like
Yeah.
if it starts building components, okay, we're not building components. What else are we doing? The answer is working on patterns, but
Yeah.
people, I think I'm like, some people just are not part of team patterns, but that's my new thing for 2024. I'll be talking a lot about patterns. We're doing it.
Brilliant. I'm looking forward to it. That's it for today. If you got any questions and you want to fire them to us for the next episode, please send it through either via the Zero Slack community, which you can find at zeroheight.com/Slack, or on X at zeroheight. Next episode will be in 2 weeks' time, and I'll actually be joined by a special guest host, Amy Hupe, because Michelle is taking some well-earned leave and celebrating Christmas. But until then, see you next time.